Hello. Smooth. Here you can see me just checking how much Figma costs. mm. I feel like there definitely needs to be a plan in the middle here between $3 and $12 a month. Okay. Oh, so keep on there for a second. I've got my three design files. So I need to put something around. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Alright. So I thought it'd be quite fun to have a little play around with component sets, variant components. Um, if you haven't done it before, then it's basically a really useful tool both for um, sort of flat designs, static designs, but it sort of really comes into its own in prototyping. Um, enables you to set up instances of all sorts of component types, um, which you can kind of quickly set up in both in your designs. And as I say, when prototyping, you can set things like hover states of buttons, interactions with checkboxes, radio buttons, that kind of thing. Um, and you can kind of extrapolate it even further into things like whole sections of content. Maybe like drop-down menus, the different states of those. Um, that kind of thing is very powerful. You can kind of nest components within components within components in component sets and that kind of thing. It's very clever. Um, so I'm just gonna have a quick go at a checkbox. So we'll say something like 18 pixels. Ooh, extreme close up. So I guess there's different ways you could do this. You could start with, you could set your first instance up, set up as a component, and then duplicate that as detached instances. But yeah, ultimately uh, you have to set up each sort of iteration, each part of that component set as its own component. Obviously, it is a set of components. So I like to just get it all set up first, including how I name the layers, and yeah, go from there. So we're gonna have our initial uh, version here. So we've got just a square, so a box with a stroke on it, 80 pixels. And what we're going to do is you can use the name of the layer to create the properties of the component set. So we're going to have, we'll keep it simple, we'll have two properties. So we'll go with state, so initial, hover, checked, disabled, that kind of thing. And then we'll also have size, so maybe small, medium, large. So yeah, so the way you name the layer before you turn it into a component set, or before you turn all the iterations into a component set. Hanging in the layer will then can be used as a way of pre-filling those properties. So I'll kind of have a go at it and then hopefully that'll make a bit more sense. So we're going to call this checkbox, and we're going to use forward slash. So forward slash. So the size is going to be large, and then the sort of state is going to be initial. So I'm actually going to change this a little bit. So we're going to set that to a slightly lighter grey. Okay, so that is. I thought I'm going to duplicate this across, and we're going to make this fully black. So that's going to become our hover state. So we're going to change initial to hover. So what we're saying here is the structure of this naming convention here is name for the elements, component. So checkbox is the name for this whole component set. Large is going to be the size property, and then hover is going to hover and initial are going to be the state values. Sorry, for the state property. So that's a hover. We're going to cover this off again. I'm going to then put a smaller field in check. So there's our sort of checked checkbox. Okay, actually at this point I'm actually going to set that as a component. Sorry, this is. It's different. This isn't how I'd normally do this, but here we go. So also, I'm just going to set these to be individual components as well. So we've got checkbox large initial, checkbox large hover, checkbox large checked. There we go. And then one more. So we'll say, two more. So we'll say, so this is currently an instance of this. So we're going to say detach instance. That sets it into a frame, but we don't want it as a frame. We're going to set that as a new component. I'm well aware that this is probably not how other people do it, so that's fine. But this is just sort of the way I've found works, so that's fine if you have a different way. So we're going to hide the inside there, and then we're going to make this a much lighter grey. So this is going to be our disabled. If you noticed, what I did there was quite around actually. So I'm going to call this disabled brackets initial, because we're going to have a disabled state for the unchecked. Actually, that's fine. Let's call this unchecked rather than initial. Unchecked hover. Again, this is a way I tend to name things. It doesn't by any means mean it's the best way of doing it. I'm sure people may have better ways of naming these, but this is just how I tend to do it. So we've got checked hover, unchecked hover, checked, disabled. Right. As you can tell, but I'm making this up as I go along. I have zero plan for what I'm doing here. Just messing around. Hopefully it's vaguely of interest to someone. So again, make a copy of that, going to detach that as an instance. I'm going to go back and turn this back on. Grab that same colour. So this is now our disabled checked. So we're going to call it check disabled, and then turn that into a component. So now that's our set of large checkboxes. So 5 states, and then I'm going to have these 3 sizes. So I'm going to just put that down there. Use a really useful plugin, proportional scale. It's kind of one of the very few things that I find Figma doesn't do as well as Sketch, where I previously used to sort of exclusively use Sketch. I vastly prefer Figma now. The one thing is, obviously Sketch has the kind of native proportional scale functionality. Unfortunately, Figma does not, or at least as far as I'm aware. Last time I checked, it didn't. But yeah, as I say, I use this great plugin, proportional scale. Just allows you to do it. There's some little quirks with it. I find it tends to sort of freak out a little bit if you try and scale multiple objects, even if they're the same size. It tends to go a bit wonky. So I did have to individually, but it's not the end of the world. I'm just going to go there. So what I now need to do, these are all instances of these main components. So I'm going to detach all of these, and then I'm just going to do a little bit of if I can remember my shortcuts. Oh gosh. I can't remember my shortcuts. Okay. Why did I set nothing really? Okay. So we're going to take large from the current layer names and replace that with medium. So if you see over here, these are my sort of medium-sized iterations. They should all switch from saying large in the layer name to medium. Right, there we go. So I'm just I don't want to do frames within components. So I'm just going to ungroup the. That's weird. Okay. Okay, actually, you know what? I'm going to back a step. I'm going to ungroup them first. There we go. Right. Okay. Who doesn't love a live demo? Checked. Checked. Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely not done this the best way, but never mind. You can learn from my mistake. Yes, this is definitely the best way of doing it. Right, so I'm going to say take large, small as layer names, make it medium. Right, now go back and set these as components. This was actually got this little plugin here that will actually let you see, I think. No, okay, it doesn't work with my OBS settings, but I can have a feel with that. So if you don't know shortcut for setting something as a component, it's just on a Mac, Shift Command K. I'm not familiar on the PC, but I'm going to take a wild stab and say it's probably Control Alt K. But that is a guess because I've never used Figma on a PC. So these are now all set to medium. Yeah, great. Just going to do one more setting here. So we're going to say 1410, 1410. Again, it would be, well, first it would be great if this was baked into Figma as a native functionality, but never mind. But yeah, it would be great if you could do more than one object at a time. So I feel like there's definitely a better way of doing this, but never mind. Okay. So what I'm doing here is just grabbing the component names for the medium set, and I'm going to go through, set them all. I'm going to do the same find and replace again. So where it says medium in the layer name, it's going to change on these ones here to small. Great. And then again, I'm just going to quickly fly through and, set all of these as components. Okay, so that was a bit a bit winded. Yeah, definitely could have done that a bit slicker. So I'm sure that wasn't the most impressive thing, but I got it in the end. So now to turn these into a component set or a component variant set, I just need to select all of them. In fact, I'm just gonna, whilst I'm there, just quickly swap these over so we've got all of our unchecked grouped together and all of our checked grouped together. So now I can select all of them. So combine as variants. So that was a bit, we'll have very quickly. So I'm just going to undo that so you can see what happened there. So like I said, we've named these layers in such a way that when we turn them into a component set, all of those properties, so the name of the component set and then the properties within that, so size and state, will be pre-filled. So if you see over here on the right, I'm going to click, you can actually see my cursor, can you? That's nice. I'm just going to click on combine as variants over here. Should have definitely realized you couldn't say there. Let's see if we can do this actually. There you go. Okay, now you can see my cursor. That's not bad. And you can probably also do. Great. This is my keycaster, as that was called. But it just means you can see what buttons I'm pressing, what keys I'm tapping rather, which could be quite handy. So here's our checkbox component set. And as you can see over here on the right, it's captured these, that there's two separate properties here. So this property 1 is size, property 2 is state. So there's 3 sizes, and then there's this one. Hang on, something's not quite add up here. Small, medium, large, unchecked. That's why. So that is to say, so the current name, space, brackets, initial, Okay. These are okay. So we'll select these two. We're going to say find hover, replace with brackets hover. So now these three are all using the same name. There's the same name. There's the same name. There's sense we should. I think that's the issue. Yeah. So there's just two of them. That's slightly named slightly differently. But now you see we've got checked, checked disabled, unchecked initial, unchecked disabled, unchecked hover. So that's our component set. So if we just chuck in, this really doesn't matter, chuck in a frame here, and then what we're going to do in our in our assets tab over here on the sidebar, we can now see that local components, we've got this checkbox. So we can drop that in, chuck that in the middle of our frame. So this is the kind of, well, without wanting to confuse matters, this is, I guess you can consider this the front end instance of the component set. This over here could be considered the back end instance of the component set. Obviously, not to not to cause confusion in terms of front and back end development. But yeah, this is sort of the behind the scenes instances that sit within this component set. Then once you're actually adding that into a real design, that would live over here. So let's say we chuck some text in here. So I'm just going to do something super quick here. So I've got that. We can duplicate that a few times. So first thing I would say, whilst my OCD kicks in a bit. Okay. So, for example, these all look a little bit large, I think, compared to this text. So that's a 100% view for me. It looks a bit large. So what we can do is we can say, right, actually we can select all of these and say size. Let's try small. Okay, that obviously now it's shifting around a bit, but that possibly a bit too small. So let's try medium. Yeah, I think medium. So just gonna, there you go. Put this back like this. So we've now got this in our design. Got the checkbox. You'll see that all of these are technically instances. So we can jump back to the main component here, which is within that component set. We could detach the instance if you wanted. Obviously, you see straight away there that you lose the component set options here. So we've set our size, chosen our medium size here, because it feels like it could fit with the text size. So now we want to say, right, it's kind of unchecked initial. What we want to do is make that one checked, and we're going to make this one unchecked disabled. So let's match this to that colour, so that looks nice. So that's sort of how you can use these in your design. Let's just match this to these sides of that as well. Obviously not the best contrast, I've just sort of picked these three colours at random, so definitely not a huge contrast between our fully black and our light grey, dark grey rather. But I think straight away you can kind of see it just makes it so much quicker to set us up in design. Another thing we can do, I mentioned earlier about prototyping, so I haven't looked into Figma before on this machine, so going to get all sorts of fun notifications, but we can say, right, this is our hover, so we want to say, while hovering, move here. If you're hovering and you click, you're going to jump to this one. If you're on this one and you click, you're going to jump back here. So we're going to do that on all of them. So hover here, while hovering. On click 1 second. I need to pause for a second. Okay, one more here. Okay. We won't do any interactions on these disabled ones. So let's say this is our flow starting point for prototyping. And then we're going to say, right, let's run this prototype. Hopefully. Here we go. So what we should see is if I hover here, there we go. Obviously I've not set up any kind of nice transitions or animations or anything, but just to sort of initially show. So if we click that, there we go. That looks interesting. Interesting, that's jumping around a little bit. Definitely shouldn't be, but I must have set something up strangely there. What's going on with that then? That's odd. Okay, I'm not quite sure why that's happening, but as you can see, the basics of it there. So previously, when I've done this in the past, before component variants came in to Figma, I would have to set up a frame in my design for all permutations of, all unchecked, all disabled, one checked, the rest unchecked, that sort of thing. It'd be an absolute nightmare because you'd end up with all these frames and all these prototype links sort of flicking between them. Whereas now, obviously it's a very straightforward one, but we've just got these very simple prototypes set up here and then just dropping that into the design. So I think I'll leave it there for now. What is nice is that we could then, as I said, we could expand it further. So what we could do, we could grab the checkbox, put that here, grab the text, put that here as well, say that's so group that and call it checkbox options. Alright. Unchecked. Oh. It's funky on the keycast, isn't it? I'm just going to do the one size for this, just to make it a little bit quicker. So now on this one, that's the first one. On this one, I'm going to say I want this to be unchecked hover. I'm going to make this with black. So this becomes unchecked hover. Another one. I'll set this to be checked. This becomes checked. And to do one more. Two more. So we're going to say checked disabled. Give that the same colour. This is going to become. So obviously here I'm using exactly the same property, state property. It's just a sort of a very quick example. Not always how you're going to want to have it, but just to kind of give an example. So same process again, got those all set up. Oops. And then set those all as new components, and then I'm going to set those as a component set. So what that means is, rather than what we've got here is just some individual text layers and then our checkbox component, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to set up second frame, get rid of all these. I'm going to go again back to our local assets tab, drop these in. Make sure it's nice and consistent. Oh, is that right? Yeah. So what I can do, I can still manually override this text, so that's fine. But this looks so different, isn't it? Oh, I've pulled through the large mistake. Okay, so that's my bad. So I'm just going to really quickly correct this so that these are all exactly the same as the ones that I manually made. And what's nice, what we'll see in a second, is that in doing this here in the component set, those changes will be like it. We will just need to reset our overrides and then okay. I need to set the constraints for these. Each of these objects inside. So what's happened is where I've made the checkboxes the medium size, the individual components here within this component set have stayed the same size. So in order to correct that, I'm just going to set all the constraints, and now hopefully, there we go, I can just drag that without it getting squashed. So now I say, I've already got that reset, so that's fine. Say 15. That's why I've got an extra one there. So now, find the middle, find the middle. Okay. Again, manually change this text, that's fine. So, we can get it looking exactly the same as this one, but we're going to say, for this, change this to state. So we can match this exactly, but whereas before I had to click on the text and color pick to match the disable color and so on, here we can just say, right, option 2 needs to be checked. So we see the checkbox and the text changes. Option 3 needs to be unchecked, disabled. There we go. So now, hopefully we can get a feel for how powerful this is, because now we've got the component set within another component set, essentially. We can still manually override the individual aspects, so I can still go in and say, actually I want this to be small for some reason if I want to. No, that's a bad example. We can go in and say, okay, I want this to actually be checked disabled, but this text obviously stays how it was until I reset that. But yeah, so you can, what I'm getting at is you can change the individual aspects here, the individual elements here, but it gives you so much more power because these can be controlled from your presets. I can really easily just say, right, I actually want that to be checked. Similarly, with prototyping, I can make this a new flow start point. So let's just give you something to nice and easily distinguish. So here's option 1. So you can see again. You can see actually that's the same, isn't it? So what we need to do actually on here is the same prototyping I've done for the checkboxes. So from this, so there is hover or hovering this to there on click, and then on click back to that one. So there you go. So hover those, click them, click off, and click off of that one as well. So you can see, obviously I could, on this one here, I could do that still with the prototyping if I group the text and group the text and the checkboxes, but then you'd have to, again, you'd be back to sort of setting these complicated numbers of frames around here. Whereas here, in a relatively short amount of time, we've got the bare bones of not only this checkbox setup, but this text. And you might say, well, why do the checkbox if you can do the same with the text anyway? But obviously, the advantage here is that if we're building a bigger product here, a bigger system, we can reuse this checkbox. It doesn't necessarily always have to be with this particular text setup. But if it is, then we've got this as well. So we've got lots of options. Obviously, we can go in here and change that around, and it will slightly break the constraints here, but still works fine. So yeah, that's kind of a very brief overview of component sets in Figma. I hope that was some amount of interest. Please excuse all of the stumbles on the way, but just trying this out really first time doing this. So yeah, if there's any interest, let me know in the comments. If you've got any suggestions for better ways of doing it, then again let me know. Yeah, if you've bothered to watch to this point, then that's very kind and very surprising. So thank you very much. I'll just give one more look at what we've accomplished here. And yeah, thanks very much. Cheers.